A life is born. We are creatures of love. We are creatures of love.
Hey gals and guys, this is Michael Ferrari of Cinema to Meep. Welcome to the latest bonus Patreon episode. And joining me today, David Nofire. Welcome back to the podcast, David.
Thanks for having me. It's just been, a few weeks now. So
That's right.
Talked, just earlier this month, too.
We celebrated Die Hard not too long ago. 35 years of Die Hard and sequels. And now we're going to do something a little different. It's October. It's almost Halloween. And we need to get a Halloween themed episode out to you, a little horror themed episode at least. What's our theme today, David?
I think we went back and forth on it, but I think we're just going with little creatures. Is that kind of the theme?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I have written down.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to pinpoint it. I mean, that's basically what it is, but it's kind of like, well, I mean, this kind of like, how did it start? I mean, because it's because of the screenings that you've done, right, in the past.
Right. We were going to do an episode kind of timed with an event that I did this summer.
Mm-hmm, right.
That was an all-night event with Joe Dante there. And
amazing.
The week that we were going to do it, we had some terrible storms in my area, and I lost power for 6 days. And so we had to postpone. I ended up getting power the night before the event. So it was really cutting it close.
That was so intense. Like you were without power for like a week.
Yeah.
And regardless of the podcast, that could wait, but I was really hoping that you would be able to do the screenings, and I'm so happy that you did. Now tell people who are not aware yet of where the screenings are, what it was, and just so we can have a little idea of that little setup.
Sure. So I run a monthly film series at a movie theater called Circle Cinema in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we do a lot of retro movies, older 80s type movies, horror movies, a lot, genre films. But once a year, we do a very big event where we have 5 movies that usually are based around a theme. And that was the theme this year. We called them Smalls. So the theme was Smalls to the Wall. And we had done one of these before. So this was Smalls to the Wall. And it was the sequel to the previous one. And everything worked out. And we got our dream guest, who was Joe Dante. So I couldn't have been more thrilled with how it turned out, even though it was just kind of down to the wire getting things going. But it all worked out.
That's so perfect. So perfect that Joe Dante was there, considering he's, pretty much the director you think of when you think of that this kind of, I guess it's not even really a subgenre, it's little section of films, certainly in the 80s that came along. He pretty much created it with Gremlins, of course, and then of all the knockoffs that we love, certainly. And then it's kind of a weird genre. It's like you don't think, when you're thinking horror, you generally don't think, you think of slashers, you think of supernatural, you don't think of the little things that can kill you as much. But also there's another kind of almost like subset of this. There's I guess we're not doing like full on animal attack movies, or I like to call them like eco horror kind of things. I feel like that's going to be its own podcast, certainly, and it's certainly its own very strong subgenre of film. We do have some creepy crawlers in this in our picks. I feel like certainly the pick that you're going to be talking about soon kind of moves past a little bit of the animal attack into until certainly this kind of little niche of these creature movies that were yeah, we'll talk about it soon, but it's kind of very specific kind of 80s and 90s creature movies that we kind of like have our finger on right now. And I think I have one from the 70s going a little bit back in time, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of 80s stuff here and maybe a little early 90s things. And of course, that's our sweet spot here in this podcast. Yeah, those screenings sound great. I wish I lived in Tulsa. I wish I could have been there. I feel like I was there in spirit. And it's so happy that we can do kind of like the audio extension of that a little way with talking about these movies now, certainly for October, the end of October, Halloween time. And now I'm not the kind of person who just celebrates Halloween at Halloween. It's certainly an all month thing for me, but also even past that, I'm still watching horror pretty much throughout the year, and it's not like a seasonal thing for me. I certainly don't think it's a seasonal thing for you. We just don't kind of look at it that way. It's never how I looked at films. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and in 90s when there were a lot of horror movies, and they were not just released in October. They were released all throughout the year, and so we watched horror movies throughout the year, and certainly on video. When they came out on video, we watched whatever the new release was that week. And more often than not, there were horror movies released every week. And yeah, it was just a great time to be alive and watch a lot of these kinds of movies, and having this little genre come along of creature movies, little creature movies, smalls, whatever you want to call them. It was fun to see, and to see kind of like where it would go. And I liked, yeah, we'll get there with what those titles are, but you can see a lot of similarity in some of the titles, but and then it's the kind of the wizardry behind the scenes, which is nice too. All right. So, anything you want to talk about? Before we get to that, we've recently seen anything you've been watching lately that you want to mention today?
Kind of continuing the trend of sort of forgettable movies at the theater. Except I did see Killers of the Flower Moon, which I liked quite a bit.
That's like a little creature movie. It's like 85-minute movie, right?
Yeah, it's you could fit two Critters movies in that, and you could probably do Critters 3. That's the one that Leonardo DiCaprio was in, right?
There you go.
I don't know.
Hopefully, is that Circle Cinema playing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They actually had their biggest weekend they've ever had was last weekend with that movie.
Oh wow!
They're playing it nonstop.
Hopefully, you could splice in a trailer for Critters 3 in front of it. You never know. Maybe. Anything else besides Scorsese's film?
Yeah, I've been watching just a few. I'm not really one of those people that tries to do a movie a day in October, a horror movie a day, but I have been catching up with my 4K collection, and I did a nice double feature on Friday of Carrie, and kind of midstream, I thought all the color in the prom scene, I want to follow this up with Suspiria. So it ended up being a really nice double feature because there were a few similarities to the pictures that I hadn't thought of whenever it just sort of came to me to pair it with that.
That's perfect. I have a little bit of red on me today because it's it's a good time for the year for that. And they came out around not too far from each other in time. They certainly have a certain connection, and Argento and De Palma certainly both disciples of Hitchcock. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities there, even if they're fairly different plotted movies. But they're beautiful. I'm sure a beautiful double feature, and certainly on 4K too. The Suspiria 4K looked great.
It's stunning.
I don't think I've watched the Carrie 4K yet, just the extras. So I need to do that maybe soon. And as a tribute too, of course, to Piper Laurie, who passed away not too long ago.
Yeah, I actually received that in the mail the day that she passed away.
Oh, so weird.
And
yeah.
I'd been talking about watching that day or the day before. So it just seemed like the perfect time.
It's I watch that one a lot too. So Yeah, over time.
What have you been watching?
I have a lot of things. We're doing a 1993 thing by the end of this year, and so my life has been watching like as many 1993 movies as possible to cover that for the podcast, upcoming podcast for that. Not much in the theater. I was looking at like really not much at all in the last 3 weeks. Which is, I guess, because there's been a lot more things released streaming this month. Like that Pet Cemetery
Yeah.
prequel. Did you see that?
Not yet.
Not a fan. Not a fan. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to ruin your experience. It just I've liked every other Pet Cemetery incarnation so far. The 1989 adaptation of the book, the 1992 sequel, and the 2019 remake. I enjoyed all three of those for different reasons. I like that they all capture different elements from the book or the spirit of Stephen King's words. This one doesn't really do that. It's like it's basically the flashback in to Judd's life before that you saw in the first movie, and it doesn't really, it's not really enough for a movie. It's not well done in my taste. I just couldn't get into it. It just wasn't, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it was really truly part of this world. It was trying to create a world on itself, and I don't know, not for me. And I don't think it honored the original source material in any way, sadly. But on a positive note, I've been watching a lot of horror movies like Hotline, Funeral Home, The Oracle, Witchery, Spellbinder. Those are all fun. Little Sister is not a horror movie, it's a dramatic film, but it's set around Halloween. There's a really great Halloween sequence in it, where the family's at home and they're just like having fun at home on Halloween. It's like a really fun little montage within the movie. It has the Halloween spirit, this movie. And Ali Sheedy's in it, as well as Barbara Crampton. I really like that one. It's a good, very good indie drama, dramedy. There's comedic stuff in it too, but it's worth seeking out if you're looking for something a little bit different for the month. Let's see. Oh, Fall the House of Usher, that was streaming on Netflix. That's Mike Flanagan's latest series. This is his last series for Netflix. I know he had problems with them, and he's moved over to Amazon Prime for his next TV adventure. And I think he went out on a high note here with this one. I thought it was really good, really well done. I'm not a good TV show watcher at all. I'm the worst. I will tune out. I will just forget about it, like I did with his first Netflix series and The Haunting of Hill House. And I watched it for the first like 2 or 3 episodes, and then I kind of forgot about it, which was not something I like to do. And then I went back to it and ended up really liking that series. So this one I made it my mission to finish it all, but I was kind of hooked, and I really thought it was really well done. It's beautifully shot and acted and crafted. So yeah, I was a big fan of that one. And of course, it's Poe, and Poe's great for this month, so it's definitely worth seeing. Let's see, we had a Friday the 13th this month. So, of course, I had to watch a bunch of Friday the 13th movies, and that was fun, having a Friday the 13th in October. So it was good reason just to watch like a bunch of the sequels, and yeah, they're also comforting. So fun to watch those. The Relic was something I watched this month. That was fun. Doom Generation. It was a movie called Shortcomings, like a indie comedy. I thought that was pretty good. That was something that wasn't horror. And then Chucky, I watched the last episode, the final episode of this series, of this season. Well, it's like kind of like the season's kind of split in half, I think, because of the whole writer's strike. So there's only 4 episodes so far, and then they're going to do another 4 next year. and I watched that. It was like a Halloween episode, and that was kind of fun, but a little uneven. But certainly the show is that it varies wildly from week to week. But I think I enjoyed last week's episode more than this week's. But it is what it is. But it's fun. It's over the top and garish, and keeping in you know in the spirit of Halloween, and kind of over the top horror comedy. And I thought it was fun for it. I think it's fun for what it is. Oh yeah, and then there's a little movie I discussed on a upcoming podcast for next month, November. So hopefully when you guys hear this, I'll be talking about it in a couple of weeks' time on a podcast. But we already recorded it. It's for the $2 late fee podcast, and we're going to be discussing the movie Tough Turf. And I was very honored for them to ask me to be on, and they somehow knew without knowing that I was a big fan of Tough Turf, and so it was a nice, fun discussion of that movie. Certainly, I've been a fan of it for a very long time, since it came out in '85, and so it was nice finally talking about it on a platform out there. So look for that. It's gonna look for $2 late fee. It's gonna drop in November. I'll post it on my socials when it happens. And that's pretty much it. Let's wrap that up and get right into our little creatures, our smalls. And see, we're in the spirit of smalls and little, we're gonna just do our top fours. And so let's get into your number 4. We're gonna play, I think, a TV spot for our first one. Here it is.
The Jennings have just moved to the perfect little town.
Smell that air.
Perfect, except for one pesky little problem.
It's just a spider.
Now, experts are moving in.
Dover McClintock, Infestation Management.
Neighbors are moving out. And the Jennings are just trying to stay calm.
Dad, chill out.
Hollywood Pictures and Amblin Entertainment present Jeff Daniels, John Goodman, Arachnophobia, a thrillamedy, rated PG-13. National sneak preview Saturday, July 14th.
Hope you enjoyed that. Now let's read off the back of these VHS boxes. What do you got there for Arachnophobia?
Okay, yeah. My number 4 picture is Arachnophobia. And here is the back of the VHS box. Hollywood Pictures and Amblin Entertainment deliver the year's most electrifying big screen roller coaster ride of a movie. Everyone is afraid of something. For Dr. Ross Jennings, Jeff Daniels, his phobia is downright embarrassing. But when he moves his family to a small town, the one thing that bugs him most is now harming the townspeople at an alarming rate. For this unlikely hero, overcoming a childhood fear of spiders might just save the community, but it may already be too late. Directed by Frank Marshall, executive producer, Back to the Future, producer, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and also starring John Goodman, this critically acclaimed, breathtaking hit entertains with its terrific mix of thrills, chills, and laughter. PG-13, running time 110 minutes, color. So my number 4 movie, I think we'll be talking about some of our runners up, some of our films that didn't quite make the cut, but this is one that I could have easily plugged in another movie, but a couple reasons I decided to go ahead and put it in there in the number 4 spot. One of them is because it features 2 entertainers who've recently left us. Julian Sands, who has a very big role in the film, and also the end credit song is by Jimmy Buffett. So R.I.P. to both of them. This is one that I don't think about a whole lot, and I have heard from several people who really love this movie, so I decided to kind of give it another shot. It's been probably over 20 years since I've seen it. I mentioned it to you, and I saw that you had watched it, so I thought that's another reason to put it in the top 4 because I didn't want to put it in there and have you just waste your viewing. But I'm sure you'll tell me about how you and the kids liked it here in a bit. This one, it came out in 1990 in the summer, I believe, and it was a different kind of a movie in that it was a big budget kind of roller coaster scary movie that was actually quite scary for kids. Pretty intense stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'd liken it to Jaws in a way, but not in terms of quality, but just in terms of, kind of bringing a sort of a B concept to a really big kind of canvas. And while watching it, I mean, it's kind of funny because I haven't seen it in so long, and I'm reminded of a few films while watching it. Like at the very beginning, I was watching it, and they're going to the house that they're moving into, Jeff Daniels and his family, and I was thinking, is this like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre great push in shot? It looked like it, and then I was reminded of Alien and a couple of other pictures while watching it. It was a fun rewatch. I think the ending stuff is pretty intense when things really start to get hairy with the spiders. And it's a mix of actual spiders and puppeteered spiders, and you can really kind of tell when they're using the puppets in some of the early stuff. Chris Walas did the spider stuff, and in that sense, the movie is a little bit different from a lot of the other ones that we're going to be talking about, but you do have a rubber monster, so I think it does fit. And it's interesting. I believe that this is the first movie that Frank Marshall directed. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
he did. Yeah, he did this, and
Alive.
Alive, and then Congo.
Yeah. And it definitely feels like a first film, because there's some wild tone shifts like in this movie. Incredibly big tone shifts, and most of those are when John Goodman shows up. When John Goodman shows up, it becomes total comedy, and the score changes dramatically. And I remembered that from seeing it in 1990, and I don't know that I've seen it really since then. I remembered how jarring it was that his appearance came in, how he came in and just mixed everything up. And then watching it this time, I just realized he's doing Bill Murray doing Carl Spackler from Caddyshack. His performance is completely Caddyshack-esque. So it was fun, but I don't know. Does it belong? I don't know. It's a movie, kind of aimed for older kids, so I'll give that decision a pass. But all in all, I did enjoy the movie a lot in this viewing. It's got my guy Jeff Daniels from Speed, who I love. So he's in the lead role. Very good in this picture. Very good in the scenes where the spiders are coming down at the end, acting against them. And it's a small town movie, and we'll have at least one more small town picture coming up. And this one, I don't know, it seems like the small town people, the country people in this, they don't come off in the best light, most of them. And I don't really know how I feel about that, but it's kind of like Die Hard, where everyone in authority is coming off in a pretty bad light too. So maybe I'll just leave that one be, but I want to hear what you thought, since you watched it this week as well.
Yeah, so it's pretty fresh. It's one of those movies I hadn't watched in a really long time. I had the Blu-ray, but I just didn't get around to watching it since the DVD era. And all right, first off, I will defend its placement here. It very much belongs in this kind of setting, even though it's like you would technically put it in like the animal attacks or insect attacks and that kind of thing, or there's you can do a whole arachnid thing. But I feel like because it's a lot of puppetry and creature work, certainly Chris Walas's work puts it into that kind of Gremlins-esque territory. Certainly having Steven Spielberg being a force behind it gives it that more of a Gremlins feel. And that mix of horror and comedy gives it a Gremlins-esque kind of touch, which I kind of forgot about. It was okay when it came out. I don't think I played the comedy trailer, but this one had trailers. Had many trailers, like many TV spots, where it plays it up as a horror movie or it plays it up as a total comedy. And there were several trailers that played it up as a comedy. And now while watching it this time, I'm like, okay, yeah, I had it in my head that it was more of a comedy, like an outright laugh out loud, silly John Goodman comedy, but it's not really at all. It's actually he does show up later in the film, and there is that big tonal change, like you mentioned, but it's not like a consistent change in the movie. It's just like for a couple of scenes, and then it's like it goes back to being pretty much a creature attacking family movie and a small town, and then they have to stop it and so on. It's very much fitting with certainly a couple of these other titles, certainly another one you have coming up. And I just had a blast watching it. And it was a family movie night. My daughter has a fear of spiders, and I feel like I was a bad dad making her watch it because it got so intense at some point. Like halfway through the movie, she had to like walk away. So I felt bad. My son loved it. He thought it was really well done and scary and fun, and the bits of comedy sprinkled throughout worked for him. He just like thought it was a good package of a movie, and that's what we felt. Yeah, my wife was really into it. She probably like loves it more than all of us, and she thought it was fun. She's a big Julian Sands fan, so it was great seeing him here in this big role. And um, yeah, it's so well done. It's a big, slick Hollywood creature movie in 1990, so it's a nice kind of wrap up to like the 80s in a way. After this, you didn't get as many of these kinds of movies. I like to call it the bridge between Jaws and Jurassic Park. While watching the movie, I'm like, wow, you see a lot of Jurassic Park kind of like in this with the helicopters and kind of setting up with the grand score and what things to come. And I'm like, wow, yeah, just like kind of that feel was there in this movie, but not quite, executed in the way Steven Spielberg would do just a few years later. And certainly this is also very much a practical effects movie, unlike Jurassic Park, which is more of, yeah, of course, a CGI film, but done beautifully. We watched that this year too for its 30th anniversary, and Jurassic Park still holds up. Strangely enough, it's the only good Jurassic Park movie in my eyes. And yeah, so this one felt like that bridge between like what he was doing with Jaws, taking the animal attack and then moving it into this other area, and where it's creature-ish, and it can go into family movie-ish territory. It is centered on a family. It's very much about a family, and of course this guy's fear of spiders, and it's very playful and fun, and yeah, I really had a blast. I liked it when it came out, but it was one of those movies where I don't think I appreciated it enough. I kind of took it for granted a little bit, and yeah, now I think it's great. It's a great example of this kind of movie, and I like that it's the first Hollywood Pictures movie. I really like the Hollywood Pictures brand from Disney, so you get a Disney creature movie on this list somehow, and I love that. That's I like. So the fact that that's there, that's great. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and yeah, not quite a total laugh out loud comedy, but when he does show, I don't mind the tonal shifts in movies. I think that's cool. I actually appreciate that sometimes, because sometimes movies get too caught up in what they are, and they're a little maybe too serious about themselves. This one certainly is announcing itself like, okay, yeah, we're totally just having fun. And I think John Goodman was a big want for Steven Spielberg. It was his idea to bring in Goodman. He pioneered him, and I think I was reading some weird trivia of how like Spielberg was in one of the scenes when Goodman was driving in a car, and he was like ducked down in the car, so you could never see him. And he said it was only because he did that only because he just liked the idea of that him being in a scene and no one knowing it, kind of thing. He's like such a weird guy and almost like kid, right? And that's the playfulness of Steven Spielberg and shows in a movie like this, and certainly in a lot of movies he produced, and Gremlins, of course, famously. And yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm so happy you actually picked it for this for this list, because it's I think Arachnophobia is, I think, a favorite of a lot of people when they were growing up. Certainly maybe a generation a little bit younger than myself. I think that really hit home for them when they were kids. I was 15 when it came out. So I was like, that kind of age where I'm like, maybe a little too, old for this, but also like, I'm enjoying it as well, but I don't want to admit to it, kind of thing. But I think kids who are like maybe like 10, 12 when this came out, like this is like, their world, and I can totally see why, because it's so good.
Yeah, I like how older folks can enjoy it, but it's aimed at a younger audience, and there's actual danger involved, and it's pretty intense. It's pretty scary, and I would say that it's maybe the scariest movie on either of our lists, just for pure frights. It gets pretty scary at the end. And I don't think I was too cool for school when that came out, but I definitely was scared by it. It was very intense for me when it came out.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good set pieces. So that's and it has like almost like, not saying a slasher kind of setup, but like how it's kind of picking off people kind of one after the other, and I love that it's that kind of like, it's almost a segue into the 90s thriller. If you think about it, how something's moving into a family's like a suburban family's life, and it's kind of taking it over, and like almost setting up the lead character to look like he's guilty of stuff, which is, happens in those 90s thrillers. And certainly the Spider is doing that in this movie, picking off all these people that he's like a doctor for. And I think that's kind of cool. It's almost like a bridge to 90s thrillers too. Which is
Spider
nice.
is Rebecca De Mornay, and
yeah,
Daniel
exactly.
is Annabella Sciorra.
Exactly. It's kind of I love that. So that's another reason to love Arachnophobia. All right. Here is a TV spot for my number 4.
You were alone. The house seems deathly still. And then it could be nothing. Just your imagination. Or this time, it could be the Boogans. Scene an adventure in terror. The Boogans. Rated R. From Taft International Pictures.
Starts Friday at a theater near you. Check newspapers for theaters in time.
Let's see. Here we go. In a small town near Denver, 2 young men begin to explore a long-abandoned old mine recently reopened by a group of miners. When one of the men is discovered missing, his friends begin a search that leads to horrifying consequences. They're all unaware of the evil that has been unleashed, and soon, one by one, the townspeople are snatched up by a monster that no one has yet to see. Suddenly, the grisly truth is revealed, and a young couple is forced to confront the unknown in order to save their lives and the entire town. That's the Republic Pictures video box. This didn't come out like on VHS until like the 90s. Ooh, it has a quote by Stephen King on the back of it. Wildly energetic monster movie, says Stephen King of Twilight Zone magazine. So yeah, he was a fan of the Boogans. He actually pioneered it when it came out in 80. Well, it had 2 release dates. Funny enough. It came out initially September 25th, 1981. Kind of moved around a little bit. And then I didn't see it. It came out into New York City, January 15th, 1982. So that's when I saw it. By Jensen Farley Pictures, a little company. They did curtains. Very, very few movies. The Boogans, though, was very memorable when it came out. The title was very memorable. What is the Boogans? What am I going to watch? It was snowy Denver set, Colorado set, so that was kind of cool too, seeing that kind of movie. You didn't see there were not like a lot of snowbound horror movies. Certainly you had like the most famous one at that time was Shining. Curtains had a snowbound set, so you got that, another Jensen Farley Curtains, and the Boogans. So I guess maybe the early 80s was the time to for have snowy kind of horror movies. I was really into it as a kid. It's horror light, I would say, is a good way to put it. There are definitely people getting picked off and killed, and I wouldn't say it's especially scary, but tense at times. Certainly, I think the movie's atmosphere is what is a winner for me. I think the actors are winners for me. Rebecca Balding is great in this movie. Rest in peace, Rebecca Balding. Passed away a few years ago. I love. Speaking of Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton's ex-wife is one of the stars of this movie. She's great. She was also Wendy in Prom Night. She played the great bitchy character in that. Here she's like Rebecca Balding's best BFF. They make a great fun pair in this movie. And possibly she may succumb to the Boogans. We don't know. You'll have to watch. There's a dog actor in this movie. One of the best dog actors I've ever seen in a movie is in the Boogans. There's like a lot of charming people in this one. They're all charming actors. The male lead is very charming. He has a little love story in this one. It's a low budget. Certainly with the creature effects. They certainly didn't spend as much money with the actual creature. You see very little of it in the movie. And then when you get to see it more clear later in the film, it's maybe not quite convincing, like say Arachnophobia or these other movies on this list. But because it has all these other elements to it, and because it has that early 80s charm, low budget charm, and I don't know, something about it makes me go back to it often. And I just find myself just kind of caught up in it and silliness. And certainly the dog, I love the dog so much in this movie. It's like, I don't know why. I just don't like, I'm not a big dog person generally. I have a cat, and guess what my cat's name is? Boogans.
The Boogans. Wow.
My cat's name is Boogans. It's a weird coincidence that my kids named the cat Boogans. I must have been through osmosis somehow coming up with that name. It's a black cat named Boogans, a three-legged black cat named Boogans. But the dog in this one is so charming and fun to watch, and I feel bad for him when later in the film. A lot of people are, off in this one, but then, it's the Boogans. It's another mine horror movie too. You got two of those in 1981 with My Bloody Valentine and this one. So certainly in the air in the early 80s, and when mines, of course, closing and a lot of them being dangerous. So that was certainly in people's minds, and having it being set in Colorado made sense. I thought it was a really charming movie, and I saw it at the Rivoli Theater in Times Square. I think I saw Ghost Story that same day with it. It's another snowy kind of horror movie, which is kind of interesting. So it was kind of a nice time to see like a kind of a low budget movie. It's like a $600,000 budget movie, and like maybe a more of a glossy, big budgeted Hollywood movie like Ghost Story along with it. Kind of a good double feature there. I've talked about Boogans, I feel like, before in this podcast, but I'm curious what you think of the Boogans. Have you seen it before this episode?
Yeah, I'd seen it a couple of times.
Okay, cool.
I never saw it as a kid. I think maybe the poster or something about it looked like forbidden fruit to me. But I think I could have handled it.
It's definitely light.
It's not that intense. The original My Bloody Valentine, the Boogans, both minor classics. I would say that the main thing about this, yes, that very memorable poster.
Yeah, it's got those hands.
The hands.
So it makes it seem actually not like a little creature, maybe like a big thing, but it's little. It's not that big. It's not very big. There are tentacles involved.
The main thing about the movie for me is that the creatures themselves, they are so cute. Little turtle monsters.
They're like little turtles with tentacles.
Yeah, I love the creature. So that's the fun part, and then the setting and of course the dog. I love the dog in this picture. Great acting. Wonderful. Remote cabin, snowy setting. Kind of a sucker for that. That's going to probably get replayed. During some winter when I'm thinking about snowy movies, because a lot of times I like to have movies that are like that. Like Dead of Winter is a good one to play with Mary Steenburgen. So I'll probably be watching that one more often. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think mainly it's one the pace is a little slow, but I mean it really gets going. It has its moments like later on that are kind of intense, but that's not the whole feeling from it. Whenever I think about like Arachnophobia versus this, I definitely think that this one's more viscerally violent, but not as scary. But but a lot of it's really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it's a more leisurely paced kind of monster movie. It's not a rush to get to the monster stuff. It kind of wants you to care about the characters, the meet cutes between Rebecca Baldwin and I forgot the actor's name, but I think I just find them charming. I always forget Anne Marie Martin's name, because she has like two names, right? I feel like she went by she's here Anne Marie Martin, but then she went by a different name later on. It's something very just charming about the way they're set up and portrayed, and they feel kind of real, and it's nice to have those kinds of people in a movie about a silly creature kind of thing. It's something about it just kind of like works really well, and makes it keep coming back for more.
Anne Marie Martin co-wrote the movie Twister.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. So I don't know. I'm imagining Twister residuals are much bigger than the bookends for her, but no, it's a fun one. Okay. Before we get into our number threes, let's do our we some honorable mentions, right? Let's see. I don't know what I have. I'm gonna read off some of them. Brain Damage. Frank Henlon's Brain Damage. This is the one I almost picked. I have talked about it. I realize I've talked about it before on this podcast. I really like that one. It's just a very fun, kind of inventive, gritty, but silly at the same time. It has a lot of moods to that one. It's got to be one of those kind of horror movies that's not for everybody, because it has like I guess not. I wouldn't say tonal shifts like Arachnophobia, but there's definitely like a dark sense of humor about it. That's kind of a lot. But I really enjoy that about it. I really like Frank Henenlotter's sensibilities. Certainly another one, Basket Case, a great little creature movie that he made before that, and it's just so well done for such a little budgeted thing that he made in New York City in the East Village. It has some things to say, certainly about the drug epidemic of the 1980s and being dependent on drugs. In this case, it's a little creature that he attaches to his head, to the back of his head, and it's feeding him pleasure, but it's at a cost, certainly. And it has some vivid sequences, and it's a good one. Do you like Brain Damage?
I like it a lot. Yeah, I actually got to see that one in a crowded theater earlier this year. And talk about forbidden fruit. That one, I couldn't believe I was watching with people because of some of the humor that you allude to, some of the visual puns. That It's a pretty audacious movie.
Sure.
And I like to describe Frank Henenlotter as a purveyor of good bad taste.
Yeah.
All of his movies it's a fine line, and he walks it perfectly in every time.
Oh, he does. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not as into the basket case sequels as I am in the first one, but I think he had a great run of three movies with Basket Case, this one, and then Frankenhooker, where they balance comedy and horror in really fun and unique ways. And you can walk away from those movies feeling like this is definitely a very unique point of view, and he's not afraid to get sexual. Certainly, what's the character's name in Brain Damage?
Brian?
Yeah,
Elmer?
Elmer
Yeah.
is very phallic looking.
Yeah.
So there's it leads to some like jokes and with that, and it's fun. It's a really well done movie, budgeted movie.
I really want to bring Frank Henenlotter to Circle Cinema for a screening. I hear he doesn't fly, so we'd have to bring him by train, I guess, and then pick him up. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was
would
a
be worth it.
very loyal customer at Kim's Video when I was there. I actually used to see him almost every day. Sometimes he would come in, rent movies, buy movies all the time. He was partnered with Something Weird Video. He did work with them. Like, you can certainly see that sensibility in his work too. So it's great. He's a true fan of movies. That's certainly you certainly see that in his movies too. Also in the honorables, we're gonna get to the original, but Critters 2, the new batch. I didn't watch it this time because I'm saving it for Easter time for the kids. I slept on it this year. I was going to watch Critters 2 with them this year, but I didn't get to it, so I'm gonna save it for Easter 2024. Dolls. I think Dolls is one that you mentioned too as an honorable mention.
Yeah, for sure. That one could easily have been on this list. I love that movie. I got to see a 35 millimeter print of that at this year's Smalls event, and that closed out the night. And so you always want to end with something special, something that makes it worth it. You know, when you're there at 4 a.m. and that year that was a 35 millimeter print of Dolls. So we kept a lot of people in the theater, and for a lot of people that was their favorite movie. It has this charm to it, and kind of an innocence that you don't see in a lot of the other movies. The other movies, the humor is a little more playful, like the Critters humor. It's not like that. But it's that one would probably be the scariest one, or I don't know if it's as scary as Arachnophobia, but it definitely has its moments of fear. Stuart Gordon directed it, and Dennis Paoli, I believe, wrote the screenplay. And I'm super excited because he wrote the screenplay for a movie that we're showing tomorrow night called Suitable Flesh, which is based off of an H.P. Lovecraft story, and Barbara Crampton is in that. So it's going to be kind of a mini reunion. Of course, Stuart has passed on, but I think that this film directed by Joe Lynch is going to be a tribute to Stuart Gordon and to films like Reanimator.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, Dolls was something that growing up for a lot of people really affected them. I know my wife was like really affected by Dolls and the first Puppet Master movie, and it just kind of really stuck with people. Certainly having Dolls and kids, when kids are involved, like something they can really relate to, and it's in their everyday life when they're kids, and just having these dolls come to life in these creepy ways just really works. And Stuart Gordon was another director like Frank Henenlotter, like who balanced comedy and horror in very unique ways, and not many directors pulled off what they did in their tones, that's for sure. Another weird tone movie, certainly the most off-putting tone of all these movies. Well, not, maybe the one after this. It's Alive 3, Island of the Alive, the Larry Cohen movie. Um, I I like the first two. I do. I do like the first movie a lot. The second one, I don't know as much. I just don't return to that one as much. But the third one, for some reason, out of all the three movies, I go back to more often. It has a really off kilter, weird vibe to it, and certainly Michael Moriarty's performance in any of the Larry Cohen movies is definitely out there, and he's really like going for it in this one. I don't know what he's doing, but it's kind of crazy, and it adds to it. It adds to the charm of this one. I think he's just like off the leash, and Larry Cohen's just letting him do whatever. And I kind of like that. It's gonna be off-putting for a lot of people, I feel like, because it doesn't quite deliver on like what you'd expect out of an It's Alive horror movie. But it's Alive 3, Island of Alive. I mean, the title alone is great. So, do you like that one?
I think I've only seen bits of it on cable. But the pairing of Michael Moriarty and Larry Cohen is just dynamite, as in the movie Q. So I definitely need to watch it. I have the Blu-ray set, but I just haven't gotten to that one yet.
Yeah, you can even watch it without having to watch the other two. It's not really, yeah, there's set up enough in the movie to like the plot that you can just like, yeah, watch it alone. It's a weird movie.
The original It's Alive was kind of a subject of fascination for me because the commercials that I may have seen like commercials like maybe for the VHS or something, or recycled commercials, but it was very terrifying.
Yeah.
The way that the creature was, or the kid was teased out. I definitely need to go back.
You won't be terrified by the creatures in this movie, but you'll definitely walk away like feeling like you've watched something pretty different. He also he did like two back-to-back movies of this, and like Return to Salem's Lot, which another one that kind of puts people off because it's not quite like the Salem's Lot that they know. It's really kind of wacky, and again, Michael Moriarty, and it's like at some point it's like Michael Moriarty teams up with Sam Fuller, the director.
Oh, yeah.
and they hunt vampires. It's really crazy. I think it's really fun actually for a sequel, because it's not beholden to the material. It's like becomes its own thing at some point, and it's just like in like less than 90 minutes and just kind of goes off and does its thing. And then and finally, I mean, there's a lot of ones I could talk about, but Troll 2 has become a big cult movie over the years. You probably showed it at your theater.
Yes, 35 millimeter.
Definitely a big midnight movie, I feel like. And it's just, yeah, it's a legendarily bad movie, but I don't know. Every time I watch it, it's not just, I don't just look at it as a bad movie. I just look at it as a really fun, silly, it really feels like a late 80s kind of lost in translation movie, I call them. That when Europeans try to make movies about America, it's often really weird and really just like really strange. And Troll 2 certainly is that. It's like, I think the director thought he was making a serious film, but it's really silly. And yeah, every time I watch it, I'm like, yeah, Troll 1 is fun, but it pales when I think about Troll 2.
Yeah, that's one that we played kind of fairly early on in terms of the movie's cult life. Sometimes it's better to be behind the curve rather than front of it, because you don't get the audience. They're not quite ready for it, and I think that's what happened there. But that was maybe around the time that Best Worst Movie was out, but it just hadn't quite achieved the status that it has now.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for honorable mentions? Or
Sure, yeah. kind of one that just popped into my head earlier tonight was a movie called The Manitou. Have you seen The Manitou?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. There's only one small creature in that one, but he does the work of a legion of them. It's a wonderful movie with Tony Curtis. And it's directed by the guy William Girdler, I believe, who directed Grizzly and a few other pictures. And it's set in San Francisco, and it's about a woman who has what is it, like a boil or a growth coming out of like kind of her shoulder, and it's a little ancient Indian Manitou, and the movie just goes into some really wild places. It's pretty incredible. It's kind of a howler. Pace is a little slow, like early mid-70s kind of pace, but I mean it's worth it. It's definitely worth the effort.
Oh yeah, for sure. I dig that one a lot. There's a lot of great actors in it, and like in this really preposterous kind of movie, and just like but taking it seriously. Although like I guess Tony Curtis is a bit hammy, but he tend to do that. He plays kind of like a fake psychic character, which is kind of fun, and it's got just the San Francisco setting. It's got a sheen to it for like kind of movie, and but maybe it's because it has all those big actors in it. It definitely feels like a big movie, and then I just love that it dissolves into like a laser light spectacle. as some of these movies did back then.
One of the things I love about the poster, like a lot of 70s posters, you had the central image, and then at the bottom you had all these little boxes with faces on them. So you had like Burgess Meredith and all the other people who are supporting, and so I just love seeing that. And of course he's in the movie, I believe. I believe Burgess Meredith's in it. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah, perfect guy for this picture. And it just kind of reminds me of a special kind of time, early 70s, which wasn't one that I watch all these movies. It's not, the majority of them are going to be 80s, but like that one, it's really fun to see those older pictures too.
Sure.
And then I think I'll just throw one more out, but it's been so long ago, I don't even know that I could say much about it. But of course, Trilogy of Terror, we got to just mention that, which was a TV movie that had one of the films, and it was about a Zuni fetish doll, which that segment was quite terrifying. Karen Black was in that one.
Oh yeah, that's one of the all-time great TV movies where Karen Black played like 3 different characters, but that segment is the one that everyone remembers the most, and it's so memorable and scary, and it holds up well. And that stuff, I shouldn't really say that. I don't hold up. It's not really the best term, but it still scares me, and because it's so wild and so 70s too at the same time. And Karen Black makes it work. She sells it. It's really good. I definitely want to talk about it when I talk about more TV movies, because it's a good one. And I like the sequel too, but yeah, certainly the original 75. I think it's from 1975 is great. All right, let's get into our number 3s. Here is a TV spot for yours.
The night of the formal is finally here.
Oh, I got good news and bad news, girl. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Night of the creeps. They are a new breed of terror.
They get in through your mouth, and you walk around while they incubate.
Night of the creeps. If you scream, you're dead.
Mixes with horror in this chiller about a college campus being ravaged by gruesome creatures that turn their victims into zombies. The night of the formal is finally here for Chris, Cindy, and JC. It's going to be the best night of their lives. But tonight is also the night of the creeps. From a world unknown comes a nightmare unimagined. First, they are under you, around you, inside of you. Then you're dead. Zombies, exploding heads, creepy crawlies. They are all a new breed of terror, a different kind of horror. The creeps are taking over. You Never Had a Night Like This. Rated R. Color. Running time 89 minutes. Sounds like from the description there, and I tried to do my best trailer voice because I believe a lot of that was actually in the trailer. It feels like the first half of that description is really scary stuff, and then the other half is just a lot of fun stuff. And I think that the movie plays more on the fun side. It's a lot of fun for me. I have here with me, helping me out tonight, I have my Night of the Creeps NECA
Oh wow, yeah.
figure of Tom Atkins, Detective Ray Cameron, one of the great supporting characters in these 80s horror movies. This is very 80s movie, directed by Fred Decker. I believe it was co-written by Shane Black. Is that right? Did he co-write that?
He did.
Yeah.
I think he did. Well, I don't think he's. I'm not sure if he's credited.
Uh-huh.
But I think he did help with it, if I remember correctly. I know he worked on the Monster Squad.
Yeah, he's not credited. So sometimes,
but I know they had a kind of like a brainstorm with that one.
They had a partnership, yeah, which was in the 80s and still up until the Predator movie, which came out a few years ago, which we were so excited for, and it just didn't turn out right. But to no fault of their own, because I think it was meddled with by the studio. But Night of the Creeps is so much fun. It's one that we played the first year of the Smalls series, and it's just kind of a jolt.
How did it play? I wonder.
It played in the middle of the night. It played third, and it played really well. And we actually played it solo in the last year. So it played it by itself too.
And new audiences like it.
Yeah, a lot of laughs. Got a very solid response. Good kind of dependable number of folks who are just really into that sort of tone, that funny kind of arch humor, but a lot of references to the past, but also sort of a nostalgia. Like at the beginning of the movie, you see, sort of a 50s cold open, but mixed with an 80s sensibility. Tom Atkins is great. Jason Lively is the lead actor in this one, and basically they're fighting these little slugs, and this is a film that kind of a conceit that you see later in a movie called what was that one called, Slither, the James Gunn movie, which was also fun. But yeah, this one was kind of a blast. It's definitely more on the humorous side than on the scary side, but it does have some really cool shots, and some classic lines. Particularly, the good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead, which is just kind of a hard to beat line. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of fun.
So this is my favorite movie from all the movies. I think I mentioned to you, like, one of your titles is my favorite movie from all these movies, and this is it. I can't confirm this as of today to be true. I watched it just tonight with the kids for family movie night. I was saving it. I've seen this quite a few times over the years, but I was saving it for family movie night, and I'm glad it was tonight. While watching it, it like Donovan, like, this is like a debut film. It's super ambitious because there's a lot going on. It's like very brief running time. It moves really quickly at the same time. There's no fat on this at all. Like it's so lean. It's got a lot of humor packed into it. It's got a lot of horror. It's not afraid to. It's got stakes. It's got total stakes. Like, people die in this movie that you care about. It's got drama. It's got pathos. It's got allusions to classic horror and horror of the past, and including, and then horror of the present, and science fiction films. And then it's got Tom Atkins in this amazing role that seems so tailored to him. While watching, I'm like, wow, is this performance Oscar worthy? Kind of is in a horror comedy, which would have never happened, of course. They wouldn't have done that, but I don't know. He adds a lot of weight to it and a lot of pathos, like I mentioned. And I felt like, wow, this one's going out of its way to give this guy this great character who has a full character arc in this movie, and he just performs it beautifully. And he's funny when he needs to be funny, and he's like dramatic and sad. And my daughter picked up on like how he's just a very sad, depressed guy, and just like how he just needs to have this kind of moment, this hero moment by the end of the movie to really get over an event that happened in the past. It's a lot in a very short movie, like 87 whatever minute movie, or 89 minute, whatever it was. And like it's packed, they pack a lot into it, but it never feels like it's overstuffed. It's very 80s, like you mentioned, the colors, the outfits, the hair, the general feel to it, but then also classic feeling as well, which is amazing that they was able to pull that off. Low budgeted, I'm sure, but and released by TriStar Pictures, who didn't have any faith in it, and it didn't, do well because they didn't really advertise it very well and didn't try to sell it very well. So just kind of lost in the shuffle of time. It was a movie ahead of its time, certainly. Having characters named after horror movie icons, like there's a lot of them in this movie. Almost everybody's named after somebody, a horror icon. It's just like such a loving tribute to the genre, and that Fred Dekker was able to get all of that out in his first movie is pretty great. As a kid, I always viewed the Monster Squad as the better movie of the two, but now I'm like, no, I think actually Night of the Creeps is a really great movie because it really works, and it never feels like there's lulls, and you just really care about everybody, and you want to see Jason Lively and get the girl, but then she's not just the girl, she gets to kick ass in the movie too, which is great. My daughter loved that. My son really picked up on that. Like, oh, she's not just the 80s girl who's just like, oh, has to stand behind the guy while he does the duty. She's helping. She's part of the action. I love that the three team up, and I love the best friend character. I think he's great, and sad at the same time. There's a very melancholy thing running throughout this movie, even though there's a lot of comedy too. So it's a lot of tones that it's like it's juggling, but it never feels like any one tone is weighing the movie down. They're just like they just work in harmony with each other, and that's attributed to Fred Dekker's touch and the writing, and it's really sharp writing, great lines like you mentioned with the dates, and it's Miller time, and just like how he's like he just refers to them as Spanky and Alfalfa throughout the movie. And actually, at some point, I forgot their names. I'm like, I'm just gonna call them Spanky and Alfalfa because it's just fun. It's just fun, and yeah, what a great character. And Tom Atkins, what a presence, and he's like the '80s dad to us all, really, in a way. He's so good, and he certainly gets a more redemptive character here than, say, his character in Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, who I also love and great, but he's maybe not the best dad. And he's very good at playing these kind of heroes who are not like who are very imperfect, say, which is great. And yeah, I just really loved it, and the music's fun, the fun choices that they play in the movie, and the casting of the actors, and throughout, even like some of the supporting actors, like the guy who plays Brad is fun, and as a very 80s blonde, I think Aryan, as they call looking villain. Who gets his comeuppance in the movie, and yeah, it's a total charmer, total blast. beginning to end. The kids loved it. They really went over really well. So that makes me happy that they can connect to an 80s movie like that so many years later. And something about it's because it's juggling a lot of things, but doing it so well and keeping you entertained the whole time. I think that's a big deal. And it's scary when it has to be scary. Like there's really tense moments in it. Like you really think like, because it has those stakes, like I mentioned, like characters like you like really die, and you're not sure like by the end like who's gonna, it's like a teen The Thing meets everything else that was going on in the 80s with the zombie movies, and it's a good juggle of a lot of things, but I love it.
You mentioned Halloween 3, and there's a figure of Dr. Chalice coming out as well. So I'm going to, one of these days I'll have Dr. Chalice and Detective Ray Cameron standing next to each other on my shelf.
Yeah, they can hang out.
Yeah,
had a beer together and a smoke.
Yeah, he has. I believe he has a 6-pack in the other set.
Perfect. Yeah, because he's more of a Scotch guy or whiskey guy in this one, and whiskey and cigarettes, and then he could join. Yeah. He could join his other version of his 6-pack version.
It does look like he has a Coors Light and a Miller here in this one. So I think they maybe missed the mark and should have given him a Scotch for this, but minor quibbles. I'm glad it exists.
Oh, for sure. I love it. All right, let's move on. My number 3 here is the trailer.
I'm calling the police. Demons. No.
The Gate
starts this Friday at selected theaters near you.
Okay, that's The Gate. I'm going to read the back of the Vestron VHS box. Open the Gate for Terror. It's a frightening supernatural thriller where your worst nightmares come true. Sensational special effects combined with chilling suspense make for a hellish film adventure. Haunting visions fill a once peaceful home as 2 teens discover an unholy evil that awaits below. Best friends Glenn and Terry stumble across a special rock with a beautiful crystalline center in Glenn's backyard. The rock enthralls them, and they dig up the family's newly sodded lawn in a search for more of the precious stones. They find no stones, but they do find the gate, a hidden underground chamber that holds the secret of centuries and the vengeance of eternity. They've unlocked deadly demons and ghoulish fiends out to create a hell on earth. The kids' worst nightmare chase them through the haunted night. The gate must be closed before it's too late. 85 minutes long. Wow, 80s movies. Beautiful. You could do it all in 90 minutes or less. And The Gate is one of those movies for me that does that. It packs, quite a few things in it, like much like Night of the Creeps. Very inventive. The creature work in this movie. The creatures in Night of the Creeps are very, I would say, more basic. They're like slugs. They're sliding across lawns. They're sliding across things most of the time. Clearly pulled by wires. I think my daughter saw one of the wires. She mentioned it. Those HD transfers. They get you. But The Gate, I don't know. The special effects are really well done. They were certainly the highlight, the big selling point of The Gate when it came out. The creature work, the stop motion animation they use, was something kind of fun and a nice throwback, of course, to stop motion of the past, but then updating it for teens in the 80s. And when you think of teen horror in the 80s, like PG-13 teen horror, you think of the Monster Squad, and I feel like you think of The Gate next. They were both very big movies for kids back then. and certainly me. I was 12 when this came out, so it was the perfect age for it, the perfect age for the Monster Squad. And they kind of set a tone for a lot of the movies that were to come for kids, teens and young teens and preteens and so on. There was a lot to live up to after those movies came out. Certainly a movie like The Gate, because it's not a very, big budgeted movie. It's a 2 million Canadian budgeted movie, but it became a hit when it came out in theaters, and it spawned a sequel, of course. And it just but more than that, it kind of left a big impression with my generation, Generation X, and I think younger generations have come to it and appreciated it and really enjoy it and get a it's like a good sleepover kind of movie. Certainly sleepover in the movie. It has that kind of vibe that's very like it seems accessible. It's PG-13 again, so they don't you don't feel like you're trying to sneak like a Friday the 13th or anything. You're getting something that's kind of made for you when you're a kid. But it's not afraid to scare you at the same time. It's not afraid to just be creepy and have that haunted house kind of feel to it, and things that go bump in the night, but then also becoming a big special effects movie too at the same time, and really inventive. Tibor Takas did a really great job with this. I like the sequel as well. It's one of those movies that didn't do well when it came out. I think people regard it as a much lesser sequel, and I guess to some degree it is a lesser sequel, but it's really inventive as well. Just expanding upon the Gate universe. It was fun, and I enjoyed that one. That one didn't quite qualify in this for me here, because there's a lot more of the little creatures in this one, and where in the sequel it's only one little creature, and then some of the characters become very big creatures in that one. Yeah, the special effects are great, and I just love the little kind of small neighborhood suburban feel to this one. Clearly it feels like Canada when watching it, but I enjoy that about it. Stephen Dorff's the little kid in this movie, and he certainly went on to bigger things, but well cast here, and a very 80s looking kid. And I like his friend. I think he's great having that kind of character as well, who becomes more of like a heavy metal kind of Satan kind of loving kind of kid in the sequel. And I like that evolution there of his character. Yeah, it's fun. It's like that, playing upon that theme of like having your worst fears come true kind of thing was, perfect for kids of that age. And you certainly see it in other movies, even for adults, but I think it works very well for kids and teens and early teens and preteens. And yeah, it's a kind of a delicate balancing act, because there are a lot of effects, but that could weigh down the movie or could take you out of it. But I think the movie does a good job at sucking you into the Gate. And I'm a fan. Every time I watch it, I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's not one of those 80s movies that felt like it should have stayed in the 80s. I think it hold, again, using the bad term of holding up, it's just every bit as effective as it was then for me. And the kids watched it with me this year when we watched it a couple of months ago, and they were really into it, and they found it to be really fun and scary, and they like the creatures. They were into it. Where did the Gate come into your life?
The Gate came into my life probably as a VHS rental. I knew of it, but we had this theater called the Annex 7. And that one was, in retrospect, it was the one that played like all the really cool movies, but I never got to see them there. And I remember seeing a standee there for that. I remember seeing a standee there for Angel. So it was like all the movies that I kind of come to love later in life. I just wish I could go back in time and watch those movies at the Annex 7. But yeah, I saw it. I'm sure I saw it on VHS and liked it. And Have seen it a few times since, but I just think it gets a little better every time I watch it. You talked about a lot of this stuff already, but this is one that we played that same year with Night of the Creeps. We played in the spot right before Night of the Creeps. It's earlier in the night. I think it's a great kind of entry point for people who are interested in horror, particularly kids. Legitimately scary for kids. We're talking about like their people's worst fears, and there's something so simple about how it's presented, like on a screenplay level. The parents being gone for the whole movie, but when they do come back, they say you've been bad, and they hear that on the phone a lot, and it's like it's very, very simple, but like that's like one of the kids' worst nightmares is like having your parent, like not being able to trust your parents anymore. I love the relationship between the two kids, between Stephen Dorff and his friend. You get the sense that it is a real friendship, and the friend isn't perfect, but you can see Stephen Dorff accepting him and still wanting to be his friend. And I think it's genuine, and I like that quite a bit. And I love the bit with the kid listening to the Sacrifix records. That's always a lot of fun. Just that aspect of it and playing it backwards. I remember quite a while ago, Mondo had a Sacrifix T-shirt, and I should have bought it back then, but can't find it anymore. But that's a great one to sport if you ever find a shirt like that. But the main thing about the movie, and you kind of talked about it first off, was the special effects. I think they're wonderful. I love the stop motion stuff. I think it's really well done. It has, in some movies, seeing transformations like say in Evil Dead 2, where Henrietta turns into the monster, and it's done in stop motion. That's fun, and you see that it was done by necessity, but I think it's really done to great effect in this picture. All that stuff, the minions, and the way that they shoot it, the way that they shoot the film, sometimes with giant sets and small actors, and sometimes in stop motion. There's a lot of technique involved. I have one of the little Minions toys around here somewhere. I forgot to bring that out, but yeah, it was just it's just one of those ones that's you could just bring that out as a cold recommendation to someone who doesn't really know much about horror movies, and say you're not going to be terrified by this, maybe, hopefully, but there certainly are some scary things in it. And I'm neglected to mention the worker in the walls. That is very creepy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So now that the more I talk, I'm wondering, is this scarier than arachnophobia? I mean, I think arachnophobia is a different kind of scary. It's more of an intense kind of a pulse pounding kind of a thing, but this has some imagery that sticks with you, and just to this day, just seeing some of those things, like seeing the worker, his body fall to the floor, and then it turns into all the little minions. That's just sort of an indelible image to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was like a lot of care put into that, and the details and the effects that a lot of other movies don't have, because I feel like it's probably because a lot of those movies suffer from budgets and time constraints, and like all movies do. But I think they really put an effort in this one to make those work, because it really elevates everything else when it goes there with the creature work and then the effects. It just it's very unique to that itself that way. Some of these other, like, you don't see a lot of stop motion animation in a lot of these other movies that we're talking about. There's a little bit of it, but it's not like, when it could have looked dated in 1987, it's used to such a full effect that it becomes very much part of the fabric of the movie, and what it's trying to do with that kind of look. And yeah, it just kind of like puts you in another mindset. And I really just appreciate that Tabor was doing that with this. And it really, I think it had an effect really early on for kids in '87, and they're still watching this movie. Like myself, I saw it at the Walker Theater, which is theater I would always like theater hop and see other movies. And I think I was like Blind Date and Project X, or it might have been the other ones. Like, yeah, it's like a little unclear, but I just remember The Gate that day being the one that really stood out to me. And that was the one I really wanted to go see, and it completely delivered. And I watched a lot on the Vestron. I got that Vestron VHS as soon as I could, and just watched it a lot over the years. And now, of course, it's like, more deluxe Blu-ray, and got a lot of great features, and showing you how they made some of those effects work. And yeah, it's a great movie, and it's still effective all these years later. So I'm surprised they haven't tried to remake The Gate, because I feel like it would just never be the same thing, because it certainly would be a CGI spectacle. But maybe they will, now that we've talked about it. All right. So those were number 3. So let's get into your number 2. Here's the trailer, where it's more of like a modern trailer, because I don't think there's a real trailer of this one.
But not nice people. Oh no, nasty people. And we know some awfully nasty people, don't we? We all have to go sometime.
Well, he's going through that difficult stage. Girls.
Now don't let that little perv get to you.
Miss Livingston. Yes, you know. Oh, Miss Livingston.
Pretty awful mess. What's left of her.
I know where there's a huge hole in the ground. And at the bottom of the hole, down in the dark, there's some things.
No one else in the whole world knows about them but you.
She's pretty. Really pretty. Well then, she's just what we've been waiting for, isn't she?
Jamie Benjamin, a 12-year-old autistic boy, is sick and tired of the cruel people in his Midwestern town. The children humiliate him, the grown-ups ignore him, and the mature females excite him. Jamie gets his chance for revenge on all of them when he accidentally discovers a huge hole in the forest, at the bottom of which are strange and deadly prehistoric creatures, which he calls Trolologs. The Trogs become Jamie's best friends, and it isn't long before some of Jamie's worst enemies begin disappearing. 1981, color, 96 minutes, R. Science fiction horror. I don't really think of this as science fiction.
Let's make some bold claims in this back. Science fiction horror. Was he officially autistic? I don't remember hearing that word mentioned in the movie.
I've heard it mentioned in some reviews, but I don't think he was officially.
Yeah, I don't think
autistic.
It's mentioned in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's an assumption.
Definitely not mentioned in the movie, but
he's certainly weird.
Certainly weird. Like the truest statement. If you don't believe anything else we've said this entire podcast, Jamie is very weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't say autistic at all. I mean, I don't get that vibe at all. I definitely got weird and creepy.
I think from the screenplay level, I think he was supposed to be maybe sociopathic. Was the word that I remember hearing from the screenwriter. I could be mistaken.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But talking about the screenwriter, one of the fun things about this movie is that it is clearly the product of two minds that are kind of at odds with each other. You've got one person who wants to do a certain tone and make things maybe unsaid and ambivalent or ambiguous. I'm sorry, and then the other hand is the director who comes in and says, "No, let's make the teddy bear that he hears voices from, which is in his own voice. Let's make it real for sure. He's definitely turning around, blinking when no one's in the room. Let's just make everything, just put it right out there and remove it of whatever subtext the screenwriter was going for." And so on that, looking at it like that, it's really really adds to it for me. But I think we're burying the lead here, and the lead is that Jamie is one of the strangest kid characters you're ever going to see. The movie starts off with it starts off on Halloween, and he lures one of his enemies into a pit where he's devoured by these monsters, and these are the monsters, the smalls that we're talking about. This the Trolologs, kind of troll type creatures that live at the bottom of a pit. And Jamie discovers them one day, and he befriends them as best he can, and starts to wonder what they eat, and wonders if they eat candy, and they didn't really seem to like that. And then so he gets meat from the butcher. The butcher wonders why he's getting so much meat, and he runs out of money. And so who better to serve to the Trolologs but the people that have been picking on him in the town. And there are some really funny scenes with Jamie being harassed by various folks in the town, including a little girl on a bike who has got the best insults in any movie. If you ever need an insult, just look to this girl's insults. She calls Jamie crazy stupid. No, she calls him clumsy stupid. Yeah. Which is great. And I think she calls him silly person and things like that. And he also hears a woman who's blind and in a wheelchair talk about how odd he is. And so later on, she's going to be on his list to go and visit the pit too. This is a deeply strange and kind of wrong movie. And like looking at it, this is one that we played several years ago, over 10 years ago, and then we played it again this year. And it kind of stuck out as a different kind of movie than the other ones. This year's films, the Joe Dante films, we started off with Gremlins 2 and then Inner Space. And so it was more of a fun kind of an evening. And then kind of towards the end, we throw in The Pit. And I heard from some people that they loved it. But I couldn't really tell like how it was going over with the crowd that night. Certainly, in the intervening years since we played it over a dozen years ago, you just sort of are keyed into the cringy behavior that Jamie exhibits a lot more, and it has a different kind of a weight than it did when you're younger and you're watching it. And back then it was maybe just funny, but now it's just deeply unsettling as well. And I have the poster behind me here with Jamie and his teddy bear. He's described it as a demonic teddy bear that talks to him, but it is in Jamie's voice that we hear Teddy. And the tagline for this movie is Jamie wouldn't kill anyone unless Teddy told him to. So you have two sets of small creatures in this one, the Trolologs and the teddy bear. and you've got the Kino Lorber Blu-ray there, and they lovingly restored this. We got to watch a 2K DCP of that. Probably the best you'll ever see it in the theater. So it was nice to have that high quality picture, for a movie that's it's a I would say it's a small cult movie, but it has its followers, but it's not as well known as some of the other pictures. And then just tonally, I need to mention that like it does play and look like an after school special in a way, but just a very perverted, very perverse version of that. And I know that you've seen it several times, so I'd love to hear what you.
It's one of those movies like I could watch that one pretty much anytime. It's endlessly entertaining, seeing his exploits, and it has a playfulness, of course, sense of humor that seemed maybe at odds with some of the other things in the movie, but I really enjoyed that it was doing that. When it becomes almost comedy, and like that montage of him killing people is really funny. Feeding them to the trollocs. I love that they're called trollocs. When he calls them the trollocs, troglodytes. It's fun. It's like a 1981 movie, but feels like could totally be 70s exploitation, Canucksploitation. But it's nothing that's like, I guess it could be a midnight movie these days. It might offend some people, some of the really kind of pervy aspects of it. But I think that goes with the territory of these kinds of crazy movies that came out this time. I just love that it's that. And the center of this movie is a 12-year-old who's like bumping people off. I mean, that was kind of unique in its own way. You got 90s thrillers where you got killer kids, like, and certainly in 1993 you had The Good Son, where Macaulay Culkin's doing this too, not to feed trologs, but to feed his own like psychotic behavior. That has a playfulness too. Maybe I do a double feature of The Pit and The Good Son. I like seeing these like psycho kid movies. Like, they really work for me. I know it's not for everybody. Some people just don't buy kids as killers in movies, but or that being kind of scary because they don't really believe it. But I believe it. I believe Jamie's this crazy kid who's gonna, if he survives the events of this movie, he's going to grow up to be like a Anthony Perkins psycho or whatever. And there's definitely that psycho theme here with him talking to this teddy bear and just talking to himself and but using this other outlet, right? Having this schizophrenic behavior. But then the movie, like you mentioned, decides to take it to another level and have this teddy bear be a real thing, real entity by the end of the movie, which gives it, I don't know, I know, a lot of people want something that's more subtle, maybe leave it more ambiguous, but sometimes I just want a crazy batshit movie that's like willing to go there, and this one is, and be damned that it's like, it feels like two different movies. I don't care. It's kind of, it's not afraid to be that crazy movie that does those moves. And it is essentially a movie about a 12-year-old killing people. So why not, right? Why not have a teddy bear be real? It reminds me of the movie I mentioned earlier, Curtains, which also has a weird sequence of a doll that's may not be supernatural in that movie. It just like kind of like has these supernatural moments that seem very odd. And that's famously a movie that was like two different movies, kind of like the director and the screenwriter were making different movies. And I like that there's that was happening at the time in Canada. These kind of crazy Canadian movies that were really just like going to these weird places and having fun, having a sense of humor about itself. And The Pit just is endlessly entertaining to me because of that, because it's not afraid to be that extra weird than your average horror movie at the time. Like it definitely sets itself apart from that. It was never destined to be a big hit or a financial hit. It was destined to be a cult movie because of those choices it makes, and we're thankful for it. We're thankful that it survived these 42 years later, and it's become this movie that could be projected in a theater on 35 millimeter or whatever. And I just love that it's survived, and it's now a Blu-ray. And definitely over the years, I've heard people talk about it, but not quite in this level now that it's achieved, which is great. It deserves it. Certainly. It stays with me. It's fun. My wife was watching with me. She had a blast, and I'm going to return to it. So over and over. So
we're a real couple pit heads. There's not that many of us out there, but we're a special bunch that are devotees of this picture.
Yeah, I love that you have the poster. It's so great. I love the image. It's good. All right. I like that. I was reading up on the actor Sammy Snyders, is it?
Mm-hmm.
He's a dance instructor now, which is cool. All right, let's go, because I was at some of the behind the scenes was like he was apparently at 12, 13, he was like 13 or 14 at the time when he made the movie, and he was sneaking out, going to dance clubs while making the movie at that young age. And then, of course, he would end up becoming a dance instructor himself, which is kind of cool. All right, here is my number 2. We're going to play a trailer for it.
Kim Darby has inherited this house from her grandmother, but the house has some secrets.
What's this?
It's for cleaning out the ashes.
It's been bolted shut.
By me. And that's the way it should stay.
I think we have visitors.
Visitors?
Mice. I thought I saw something in the kitchen. But it was something like this little ferocious animal grabbed at my dress.
We want you, Sally. We want you. We want you. We want you. We want you.
Don't be afraid of the dark.
Okay, that's Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Here is the back of the big box Lorimar USA home video. Behind a forbidden door lies a supernatural force with an insatiable desire for blood. Sally and Alex Farnham, Kim Darby and Jim Hutton have inherited a lovely old Victorian home that harbors a deadly secret. In the bowels of a closed-off room lurks a horde of hideously evil creatures, just waiting for a chance to get out to claim their next victim. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark is a terrifying tale of the supernatural that explodes when curiosity gets the best of Sally and unlocks the forbidden door in the downstairs study. Suddenly, violent poltergeists are able to roam the house in the dark, and their target is their liberator. Fighting with all her might, Sally is drawn into a burrowing battle of wills as the satanic demons draw her closer and closer to the vile and repulsive underworld. Not for the faint-hearted, you'll begin leaving the lights on at night after experiencing this eerie and frightening excursion into the macabre. A full-length feature film. Approximate running time, 74 minutes. Now, magic of 74 minutes. TV movies back in the 70s, guys, sometimes ran at a 90-minute block. Amazing. So you would have a 90-minute block on TV to watch a TV movie, and so the actual movies themselves were like 70-something minutes long. The rest would be commercials, and you just like got caught up in it. And they a lot of these kinds of movies, like, because they were like 90 minutes or less, they flew by, and they did what they did, and they did them well. And you just kind of got you caught up in these little stories and just have fun. And I love the horror versions of those. They were just a lot of fun in the 70s. I caught a lot of them, of course, in the 80s when they reran them on TV. Usually late at night, like the 11:30 movie. I'd watch a lot of the 70s. A lot of the 70s horror movies, like Gargoyles. That's another good one. There were quite a few, and I became a big fan of these TV movies from the 70s, these kind of scary TV movies from the 70s because of that, because of those, like staying up late nights and watching these things on TV. And I wish I'd seen a lot of them when they first ran, but I wasn't even born when this one came out. It is, for a generation, the generation before me, generations before me really affected a lot of people when this aired back in the 70s. It was like, it scared a lot of people. It's hard to believe that now. It's very fairly tame movie, right? But there's imagery in the movie that really stuck with a lot of people, and certainly me too. Seeing it as a kid, it scared me. It's these little creatures and a house, a big house, and of course that age-old concept of these people who live in these couple who just buy this big house. It's way too big for them, and then bad shit starts happening. And it's fun, and you get caught up in it. Kim Darby is a great lead to have in your movie. She's instantly sympathetic. Her husband's a complete jerk, of course, in that very 70s way that guys are very dismissive of their wives and didn't believe them. And he does that quite a few times in this movie, aggravatingly so, but very true to the time, of course, when women weren't taken as seriously, and certainly in these kinds of setups and movies. And that's part of the magic of 70s horror, because a lot of these movies were made with women in mind, and new women would connect to them greatly. And you sense that while watching it. It's really powerful by the end of the movie, and you care deeply about Kim Darby and less so about her husband. I really like it. It's always stuck with me. It's got a great new Blu-ray in the past few years from Warner Archive, and it brings out the transfer on the VHS was a bit murky, and some of the airings were not that great. But now you can see it. You can see the movie because it's a fairly dark movie set in a house most of the time, and for most of its running time is in the house, and it's great because of that. I love those kinds of settings, those isolated settings, those kind of very simple setups. And when I was thinking little creature movies, and I kind of wanted to go a little bit off like what I would normally do, like kind of a silly 80s vibe. This definitely doesn't have that. But if you stick with it, I think there's a great payoff there. And again, you're not investing a lot of your time. You're investing 74 minutes of your time, and it just flies by so quickly. And I have a feeling you'll get caught up in it. And just think very 70s, and get that in your head before watching it. But I think, for me, that's a big selling point. So, because I that was the decade I came to this world, and certainly 80s. Well, even TV in the 80s, a lot of it was holdovers from the 70s. So that was a lot of my beginnings, seeing these kinds of things. Was this your first time seeing it?
It was. This was a blind buy for me. I did get that Warner Archive Blu-ray, and it looks quite good. I was very impressed with the picture quality for this 50-year-old TV movie that was shot in 2 weeks.
Yeah, they made those things cheap and quick back then. Yeah.
I You mentioned gargoyles earlier, and that's one that kind of scarred me. I have this very early memory of it being on, like at 5 in the morning, like or maybe a little later, maybe 6 in the morning on a weekend, like when the sun's just coming up, and Bernie Casey is the gargoyle, talking not to the screen, but sort of, in the general direction of the screen, just really terrified me as a kid. I haven't gone back to watch it, but I did get kind of a spark from watching some of these TV movies that started with when I watched Bad Ronald a few years ago, which was a really wonderful experience. And I have to say that the horror TV movie of the 70s, it's not a blind spot for me, but it's one that I really need to go to and explore and develop the number of pictures that I've seen there. I haven't been disappointed yet, and this one did not disappoint either. You mentioned Kim Darby. She is a very likable protagonist, a very young wife in this film, and you start to see. You were talking about the difference between her and her husband. You start to see a bit of a theme arise in the first half of the movie, at least, where the husband is ignoring her, or his priorities are with work, and she's sort of relegated to a lesser concern, in his eyes. And when she's talking to her friend, when they're walking around shopping or talking about shopping, her friend mentions women's lib. So I think that, like, this sort of feminist point of view is present in the film. I don't know how much we see in the second half, because I was kind of more focused on the creatures, but it's definitely there, and the creatures themselves are, I seeing it now for the first time, it's not as effective as it was 50 years ago, but the creature design is interesting. Kind of like mushroom heads, or at first I thought they were more like artichoke heads. So I was sort of fascinated with looking at them, and it's always fun to see, how they do things, like with big sets, like the
like that.
Yeah, little people in there, but with like a big table or chair, and big things for them to work with. I did like the movie. Let's see, what else would I say about it? I think that I really need to see more of these horror TV movies. I need to really up my game there. There's a very nice commentary by Amanda Reyes on this, and she does a lot of TV movie commentaries. So it's worth it for that too. So if you're thinking about getting this movie, I would definitely recommend picking it up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of always gives a lot of great context in the commentary she does. We go back a long way, me and Amanda, and I think her love for these kinds of movies really inspired me to seek out more past the ones that I grew up with, and branch out, and like recently seeing, like I mentioned in my recently seen, that I watched Hotline, 1982 kind of TV thriller with Linda Carter. That was fun seeing that, because she actually just talked about it recently on a podcast episode. I mean, there's a lot of like these gems in there, and this one happens to be one that affected a lot of people when it came out. It was something unexpected, I guess, at the time. We've since seen movies kind of like this. There's been a remake of this movie that did not work at all, because do you remember anything from that remake? I certainly don't. I know I want to see it, and even had Guillermo del Toro, the director, the great director himself, write and produce that movie, but I don't remember much from it, honestly.
Super forgettable. I remember Greg Kinnear was the male lead, and Katie Holmes was the wife, and they focused the point of view on a child, a girl.
Yeah,
in this
that's true.
So that was completely different from
that seems very much like a Del Toro kind of touch too.
Yeah. It may have had some moments, some scares, but but yeah, not something that stuck with me at all.
Yeah, and the images of like Kim Darby being dragged into the grate definitely burned impression in my head when I was a kid, and a lot of other people, I think, too. When if you look up some of the reactions to this movie over the time, um, and just having it in this great transfer, it's like, wow, it's because this one, these TV movies didn't really look very good on VHS. When the very few of them that were lucky to even get VHS releases, and a lot of the other ones were just kind of lost in time. It's just yeah, it's just definitely one of the better examples of movies of TV terror of that time. And again, 70 something minutes long and perfect perfect throw. I love that Bad Ronald affected you as well, because that's, to me, one of the best examples of 70s TV as well. All right, so those are number twos. Let's get to our number ones. Here we go. Let's play. Okay, that's going to play a trailer or TV spot for your number one. Here it is.
We told you the rules.
Remember the first one? You can't get them wet.
Don't let them eat after midnight.
What if they're eating in an airplane and they cross the time zone? I mean, it's always midnight somewhere.
You didn't listen. Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Gremlins 2, the new batch. Rocking your way this summer. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, May 18th at a theater near you.
Rural Kingston Falls. Today, it's the Big Apple and lots of wild, anarchic comedy because a new batch of mischievous green meanies is on the loose. Original Gremlins collaborators Joe Dante, director, Michael Fennell, producer, Steven Spielberg, co-executive producer, young stars Zach Callaghan and Phoebe Cates and cuddly furball Gizmo reunite in a zippy sequel that's infernally funny and better than the original. Michael Wilmington, Los Angeles Times. The fun comes in non-stop batches of exuberant special effects, reptilian mischief that balloons into comic catastrophe, and an exclusive gremlinized surprise, a special sequence just for home video viewers. We told you, remember the rules, you didn't listen. Now you'll have to face up to the hilarious consequences and have a blast doing it.
Before we get into it, that this VHS box, the back of it, there's something unique in that little black bar towards the bottom. It's like a little highlighted box. Do you want to read that?
Yes. Gremlins 2, the new batch, is presented in a matted screen format, preserving the aspect ratio of its original theatrical presentation. The black bars at the top and bottom of the screen are normal for this format. So that's not one that I would have expected to get the widescreen VHS treatment.
That was Joe Dante. I think he wanted that. He pioneered that with his VHS releases. He did that for Inner Space before this. That actually also came, that was a widescreen too on VHS when it came out in 87, 88. And you got to see Gremlins 2 widescreen. Very, very rare to see a widescreen movie on VHS back then, or just having those black bars to show you what the movie should have looked like in a theater. It was a very rare experience.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I didn't know that about Joe Dante. I wouldn't have expected it. Well, not because of him, but just as a title, because they're so rare at this point to be coming out that way.
Yeah. So Gremlins 2, where did that come in for you?
Gremlins 2. We probably would have expected from the concept of this that there would be a Gremlins film in our list somewhere, and this is my favorite of the two Gremlins films. I love Gremlins, but Gremlins 2, the new batch, I just love the energy of it. Nonstop. It's so inventive. There's just so much going on in this movie. There is some fourth wall breaking. There's some meta aspects to it, but it's not too much. It's just really wonderful, and it's like they just let Joe Dante loose and just here, make your own movie. The studio didn't understand the first one, so here's some money. We just make it like the second, or just make it with a 2 on it, and we'll put it out. Just do whatever you want. And you see his love for movies, you see his love for Warner Brothers cartoons, and just his kind of endless energy. It's all over this movie. It's just really terrific, and I think it played really well. It was the top of the list at our event this year. We started off with Gremlins 2, and then we moved to Inner Space, and Joe Dante gave a brief introduction before both of those pictures, and he was standing there kind of casually eating popcorn while he was talking, and it was really really wonderful. His whole demeanor and just his relaxed conversation with us, it was terrific. Yeah, this was kind of a dream screening for me to play this year. This was sort of the whole piece to this concept was I want to play Gremlins 2, and if I can do that, then everything else will fall into place. And so we had 2 different concepts. At one point, we wanted to bring in Joe Dante and thought about doing basically a Joe Dante retrospective the whole night. And so this sort of became a hybrid of that and another idea kind of coming together. And then along the way, we actually got him to say yes. And I think part of that was, I think the fact that we were playing 2 of his pictures, he appreciated that, but he was wonderful.
I mean, he wanted to come because obviously the Pit was playing, so he had to go see the Pit.
Yeah, he has. We gave him one of the shirts, and this is the shirt for the night here.
Oh wow!
It's got his name on it, and
nice.
But like it's basically a play on like maybe the newspaper slick for the Pit.
Oh yeah. I can see it. I definitely see it. Yeah,
you see the monster at the bottom.
Love
there.
It.
So
Love
at some point, perhaps Joe Dante is wearing a shirt. He's got the Pit monster and Teddy and Jamie on it.
Love it.
Yeah, I just really love this movie. Gosh, I could just play off of specifics, and if you want to talk about things, but it's just got such a charm to it. It's so funny, so zany. It's just right. I think in reading on it, some people are sort of turned off by the turn towards kind of pure comedy that it does, but I think it's great. I think it's genius.
I mean, yeah, what else to say? It's one of the greatest sequels of all time. I mean, that's clearly how I look at it. I mean, I don't try to compare movies too much, sequels. They should complement the thing that came before it, but I like when they try to be their own thing too at the same time. This one is that it just takes the Gremlins formula and then runs off into other crazy directions. It's clearly Joe Dante just having fun, trying to get away with as much as possible. It really shows here. It's like, give them Gremlins and then give them sneak other things in while you're doing it, and it's just a total blast from beginning to end. It's it could seem overstuffed and just so like disjointed because of all those like elements, but I think he does a great job, as he always does with his films, bringing it all together in a cohesive, fun story. And following these characters and these creatures and to its inevitable conclusion. It's not like it's going so off the plot of the first movie. It's following a template too at the same time, where these creatures are running wild and amok and then have to be defeated by the end. This is the same thing happens, right? But it's contained into this building setting, which was genius, and I'm a sucker for building movies, of course, and apartment movies, and I've talked about that plenty on this podcast. Poltergeist 3, for example. Another genius building movie, uses a lot of great effects. And Gremlins 2 is just letting it run wild and having a lot of fun, throwing a lot of bits out there. Everything sticks for me. I always find myself just laughing and having fun along with everyone else. I think I watched this with the kids. Yeah, definitely. We watched it, I think maybe earlier this year or last year. It wasn't too long ago, and the Gremlins movies just really work for them. And what kid doesn't love Gremlins? I have a Gizmo plush doll somewhere. I think it's in my daughter's bedroom. She might have stolen it from me. My original Gremlins lunchbox is up there somewhere from 1984. I'm a big Gremlins fan. I just have always been a fan. Gremlins and the first Gremlins and Ghostbusters, famously came out on the same day in the summer of 1984. But I was always a Gremlins kid. I was not a Ghostbusters kid. I made a choice. I laid my I maybe I'm a line in the sand between the two. I'm like, that's the one for me. That's the one that has the humor that I like, and the reverence it has to older movies and classic films and science fiction and horror, and it had a lot of that love and in the first film, and it's carried over here with the second movie. And to some really fun ways, like having Christopher Lee as a character in this movie is a big deal and a lot of fun as a mad scientist of sorts. And having all of Joe Dante's players and actors you've seen in a lot of his films here is always great and welcome and comforting too, having those players show up. Having it set in New York was also another draw for me, because being a New Yorker, having a Gremlins New York movie is to me like, yeah, that's what, there's always that idea of like when you're doing a sequel, like a big budget sequel set in New York, like Home Alone 2 set in New York. This is the best of those. It doesn't utilize New York City in the way that you would expect a movie like this would. It's, it feels very set bound in that way, but that's having this controlled chaos is what makes this movie so beautiful. Having that set like they much did at the first movie, having that town set really just kind of made it created its own little world, right? So you had this little building world within New York City to give it a different little flavor from the first movie. To have Billy's exploits working in this office, it's kind of fun. I love Haviland Morris from 16 Candles playing her boss. I think that's a great little nod to screwball comedies there.
Mm-hmm.
This very fast talking kind of very world weary boss with big red curly hair. It's very striking looking, and just having her be fun. I thought that was a fun foil for Billy, and of course Phoebe Cates' character having a little angle there. Gizmo gets a little like some fun stuff to do with a little arc there of becoming almost he's tired of being thrown around by these gremlins. He has to become a hero in this one as well. And then the assortment of creatures themselves. I mean, that's the big selling point of the Gremlins movies in general, but this one goes even wilder with that, of course, and ups those antes with what they could do with that. Effects of the 19 this is like 6 years on, right? So yeah, the effects were more sophisticated by then, and they could do a bit more. I'm thankful they didn't make a Gremlins 3. because I feel like Joe Dante really just like did as much as he could in this movie. So like, what more can you do, right?
He did everything he could to make sure there was no Gremlins 3.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. This didn't turn out to be the huge hit that they wanted, and so like, okay, yeah, that's enough of that. But I think over time, I'm sure it made its money back, and whatever. But over time, it's become this cult movie because of that. Much like a lot of Joe Dante's movies, they just become so loved and revered by people, and Gremlins 2 is certainly one of those movies, I think. And it's not screened enough, I think. I'm so glad that you screened it. There's going to be a Gremlins screening in a New Jersey theater, I think, for Christmas in December, so I'm going to see that. But I never see Gremlins 2 screened, so I'm so happy that you got to do that. And it was a big deal for me when it came out in the summer. I think it was like maybe May or June of 1990. And it was a big deal because I was such a big Gremlins 1 fan. And so it'd be nice to go see it in a theater again. So I'm thankful that you went out of your way to make sure this was the centerpiece of your screening.
Yeah, one of the great things about that, we did show it on 35 millimeter film, was there's a scene in the middle, not a big spoiler, but where the Gremlins are in the auditorium or in the screen projection booth, and the film starts to melt from the heat and breaks. And so that was great having that moment in 35 millimeter. And so people, not everybody had seen the movie, so they were thinking that something had happened. And so it was great to have that trick, that very unique trick, which they actually tried to replicate. And the VHS box alludes to, they have a different sequence in the middle of the movie, which is wild to me that they did that.
I know.
The funny thing is that later on in the screening, the film actually did break.
Wow.
Just for a few minutes, and we got that back on track. But that was the perfect movie for that to happen.
Hopefully, Joe Dante was off there laughing about it, because
it's just stressful in the moment, but I see the humor of it now.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Gremlins are endlessly creative. All the different ones. I believe it was Chris Walas in the first one who did the Gremlins, and then this one's Rick Baker. I could be mistaken on the first one, but yeah, this is definitely Rick Baker who's putting his own spin on things. And surely he didn't come up with all the ideas, but there's so many wild different Gremlins, and a lot of that stuff is mentioned in the Key and Peele sketch to great effect. And one other thing a couple other things. Yeah, this movie is actually, all the things that are going on, it's actually kind of prescient too, because the stuff about the smart building and the energy efficiency that's going on there, I'd never seen anything like that before. And it's like, it's before its time, and seeing these things which we now have, it was parodying things that didn't yet exist, probably, in some sense.
Totally.
And but we have them now. And then just the last thing, you mentioned Christopher Lee, and I think there's some really wonderful performances in this movie. Christopher Lee's in the movie for maybe 5 minutes, but he's terrific in the movie. He did, behind the scenes, apologize to Joe Dante for appearing in The Howling 2, which Joe Dante, of course, directed the first
right.
Howling. So yeah, wonderful from Christopher Lee. And another great performance is a voice performance, Tony Randall doing Brain Gremlin, which he's just terrific. Like the I don't know how he came to the particular the voice that he does, but he's wonderful. And then of course the typical or the usual players that Joe Dante has, like particularly Robert Picardo. I like him a lot in this picture.
Oh, he's great in this one.
Yeah, he's great in this. And then following it up with Inner Space was great, because he has another.
He's so fun in that. Yeah,
yeah. Just kind of, it was really fun to see those like a handful of actors in both pictures too, and you could tell that it was fun for the audience.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, it was really special night. I don't know that we could top it. It was just everything we could have wanted.
That's so great. And oh yeah, John Glover. I want to mention John Glover because
of course
he does such a good job in this movie playing this. It was obviously parodying like evil developers at the time, like Donald Trump, who was not loved in New York City in 1990, and still not loved by New Yorkers to this day because of his slumlord ways and cheating practices at the time. And he was just, he was tabloid fodder, and he was just just not someone that people regarded in any positive way. Fact, that's true. So it was fun seeing a take on that character, but then make him into this kind of likable guy because John Glover is playing him and playing the evil, greedy developer, but then making him kind of like almost a hero by the end of the movie, which is kind of an unexpected turn. And also kind of, again, a turn that that only Joe Dante could pull off in a movie like this. And it's fun. He's having fun with that character and his kind of like buffoonish ways, his very obviously egocentric ways. And but then it's great where it goes by the end. Brain Gremlin, as like you point out, was really fun, and the female Gremlin and where that goes with Robert Picardo is really memorable and funny. It's actually a really, really funny movie, and I like there is definitely really some really funny moments in the first one, but this was, in comparison, this is like the real flat out comedy between the two, and it's just funny, and like all the stuff in the TV station, and there's like endless scenes of like that in this movie that were just like so many bits and that add up to a lot for me in this one. And I'm surprised I don't like watch it more with the kids because it's so jam-packed with stuff. And but I'll make it into heavy rotation. It's easy to put the first one into rotation every year because it is a Christmas movie. Maybe not quite the same here because it's not really quite that. But it's for a wild time, definitely call Gremlins 2. It really is everything that you want in a sequel.
Endless gags. There's not one but two Phantom of the Opera Gremlins gags in this movie.
Yeah, it just jams a lot in 107 minutes. Jesus. All right. So that's Gremlins 2. Here is my number 1.
Of all the planets in the galaxy, they chose ours. They're hungry. And we are their favorite food. Critters. They bite. Rated PG-13.
Critters opens Friday at a theater near you.
All right, that's Critters. Reading off the back of the RCA Columbia Pictures home video box. Vote thumbs up, said Siskel and Ebert about Critters, a horrific story of carnivorous aliens who come to Earth in a feeding frenzy for human flesh. It's no picnic for the Brown family when a lethal litter of Krites arrives unannounced at their Kansas farm. Trapped in a deadly nightmare, the terrified Browns fight for their lives against the attacking, bloodthirsty monsters. But it's a losing battle until two intergalactic bounty hunters arrive determined to blow the hellish creatures off the planet. It's an alien adventure full of action and just crawling with critters. Okay, so back on track, I guess, with what we would with these kinds of creature more horror related kind of movies with critters. it has a good sense of humor too, like Gremlins too. Definitely not a comedy though in that way, but it has a sense of humor about itself, which kind of lightens the tone you would see in a movie like this. Normally I would say it's got a lighter tone than say even the Gate 2 or Gate rather, and what else on my list? Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, certainly. Boogans. So yeah, it's family friendly-ish, I would say. PG-13 rated. I did watch it with the kids earlier this year. Their first time seeing a Critters movie. And because when it came out in 1986, I was 11. I was so into this movie. So into this movie. I knew it was New Line Cinema. It was big. That was a big selling point for me because New Line Cinema had done Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2 by that point. So like this new company that's making these kind of horror movies, that cool logo, I'm gonna go see Critters. And it totally delivered on what it was setting up in the trailers, and having this kind of hybrid of horror and comedy, but also science fiction. I wasn't a big science fiction kid, but in the 80s, you were getting really good science fiction laced movies, and Critters certainly is that, with these intergalactic bounty hunters, as the back of the box mentions, having those characters. What makes that work for me is because it's so character and light and humor based that it makes the science fiction stuff really fun instead of like being very heady or bogged down into like the semantics of like aliens and like, you know, coming to Earth and all that stuff that you see in a lot of like very like more heavy duty science fiction movies. This is just like a light, silly romp of these critters coming, crashing to Earth, bounty hunters chasing after them, and then like a lot of havoc ensuing, right? So clearly Critters was born because of Gremlins. Let's face it. But to me, this is the best example of a ripoff movie where it's like it takes that central like conceit, like hey, make a movie like Gremlins, go, but then make it really fun, draw characters you really care about. Again, very important in a movie of this kind. If you don't care about people, then you're watching Munchies or something that's really like not a very lower tier creature, Hobgoblin, you know, like one of those kinds of like a lot of other of the ones we haven't even mentioned, right? Because they're just like forgettable, right? There's nothing in them that like really sticks out, like the characters that you don't remember the character. You may remember the designs of some of the creatures in those movies, and that part is fun, but you don't remember the characters. Here you remember everybody. You remember the family. You remember Dee Walls as the mom. You remember the dad. And of course the kids in this movie, because they're like they have to rise up and like, you know, the kids just kind of have to save the day. And so what kid in the 80s didn't want to see a movie like that? Like you want to sympathize and immediately see yourself in that character and see him like try to save his family from these critters. And Scott Grimes did a good job doing that, and everyone else in the movie just kind of really just makes it work, makes it believable, makes you care about this you know, very wholesome kind of Kansas family, but in the 80s, really square set in the 80s feel to it. And then having these bounty hunters show up, and those characters are just really fun because the idea of like them taking shapes of other people is also a nice little setup for a movie to come from New Line with The Hidden, where Alien kind of takes you know, is kind of transferred in between different people and becomes different people. Here you have the critters, bounty hunters. One takes the form of a famous rock star. The other one is like never settles on someone, is always constantly changing. That's funny. That's a funny concept. And then you have like the town drunk, you have the sheriff, Emma Walsh is always great to see in a movie. And yeah, just like having all these like kind of Lin Shaye, having all these characters kind of like play off of each other, and it's like in this like 80, is it 80 something or 90 something minute movie is just like, heaven for me. And I put it my number one only because I felt like this is the example of when you could do a rip-off movie really well. And the director Stephen Herrick did a really great job. And he had later success in the 80s with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is a really fun science fiction comedy. And here he gets what a fun first movie, right? To just to show off like this kind of story. And the critters themselves are great and very memorable. They're very, of course, Gremlins-esque with the way they're a lot of mischief they get into, but they're also pretty deadly too, right? They're like full on killing people in this one. there's carnage, where Gremlins has like some deaths, but mostly off screen, or you see the aftermath. Here some people bite it, which is fun. And so it's got ups the ante a little bit with that by 1986. And yeah, I mean, it's such a fun movie. I watched it a lot over the years. It has sequels. There's only one good sequel with part 2. But I just go back to the first movie. It was a very early VHS movie for me. The first time, actually, this is how it played out. I rented it a lot, and then I went to this used, like, not a VHS store, but it was like a kind of like a junk store almost, that had like a lot of VHS tapes. And they didn't have Critters like a real previewed copy of it, but someone had recorded it onto a VHS tape, and for some reason they were selling it for like $1 or something. So yeah, I gotta get that, because like that way I could watch Critters all the time. And that's what I did. I watched Critters like a lot, and I never got bored of it, and I still don't get bored of this movie. I just watch it a lot, and yeah, pure entertainment, pure fun for me, and just always brings me back to a simple time in my life in 1986-7 watching this movie a lot. How about for you?
I think when we're talking about Critters, we're definitely talking about the cream of the crop of Gremlins ripoffs, because Gremlins did spawn several films that were emulating that magic, or trying to emulate that magic. Mm-hmm. And then once you brought that up, I was reminded of one other movie that I want to add to the honorable mentions. I want to add Ghoulies 2 to the list.
Ghoulies, yes, that's right.
I enjoyed the carnival setting. I enjoyed the giant ghoulie at the end, and I loved, like, there's a scene where they high five each other, which is a great gif. And there's a fun metal song that goes in there too, and screenplay by Dennis Paoli, who did Reanimator and the movie I was just mentioning earlier, Suitable Flesh and Dolls, frequent collaborator with Stuart Gordon. So yeah, I want to add that one to the list. So some of the things that I like about this movie, I really like the depiction of small town life in this movie. Mm-hmm. It does seem genuine, like the scenes around the table, and the scenes like where people hang out in the small town, like the bowling alley, the church. That seems real to me. I do like the dynamic between the bounty hunters. I like that. That really tickles me. The one who takes on who's scanning through all the channels or whatever it is that he's seeing, and he stops on a like an MTV video and picks this guy's face to take on the guy who's singing like a hair metal, or just kind of like a hair power pop song, Power of the Night.
Power
And I hope
of the night.
yeah, I hope you can do that as
Catchy,
an
too.
outro or an intro somewhere, because it's a really catchy tune if you haven't heard it. And but more than that is the other one who just can't seem to decide on a face. It's just so funny to me that the other bounty hunter. That's a pretty good gag. But I think the main appeal to this movie is the creature design. I think it's really wonderful. The, they are pretty vicious. It's just always entertaining to see them on screen and running around and rolling into little balls, and
Mhm.
it's just a great application of that, like that clearly rip off of Gremlins, but the monsters are so much fun. So that those to me are the main appeals. It's the farmhouse setting. It kind of, for me, it's I think as a kid it's a lot more fun, just the way that it's done, than watching it this time. I also might have been a little bit tired. I was kind of struggling through it a little bit in some parts, but it's been kind of a long week. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this one, and it was a fun watch. I've only seen the next sequel directed by Mick Garris, which was creative with its gags as well, which included the critters assembling and rolling up into a gigantic ball. So those gags go a long way for me.
Yeah, I mean that they're pretty inventive with what they do with these kinds of things, and it's just it's one of those kinds of movies that just kind of it came out at a time when I was like really ready for this kind of movie, and definitely needing it after seeing Gremlins a couple years before. There were a lot more. Ghoulies might have come out between the two. I think I can't remember now, but there was like there was Ghoulies, and then suddenly you had Critters, and then you had Munchies and Spookies and Hobgoblins and Beasties and all these kinds of weird things that just kind of popped up because of Gremlins. But the one that just really just makes me go smile and feels like it's the most accomplished as a film itself, rather than just a concept, is Critters, because it really tries to paint a portrait of like cozy, Midwestern life, and how it's interrupted by these creatures from outer space. And the best science fiction movies of the 50s did that. Gremlins certainly did that in the 80s, and Critters joins the ranks of those illustrious science fiction themed movies that were creature attack movies. And I just get into it every time. And the music's cozy. Dee Wallace as the mom is always a must in the 80s. No connection back to Joe Dante and The Howling. Gotta have Dee Wallace in the 80s for sure, which is always comforting. And yeah, everything about even the look of the movie, like that's there's something there that, and by the end of the movie, you really feel like the family's been through something, like you have in some of the best of these movies, like The Gates and Arachnophobia and even Night of the Creeps. Like everyone's gone through this big journey of battling these little creatures from wherever they've come from and conquer them by the end, hopefully. Although you get a nice little Easter egg, if you will, at the end of this one, to set up a possible sequel, which is nice. New Line was Bob Shea, and New Line was shrewd and smart to keep the door open for part 2. and I think they had success there with that one because it worked. Where some of the other sequels that they rushed out later on for Critters didn't work because they were on the cheap and made for the home video market. Some of the Ghoulies sequels work, some of them don't. Some of the, like I said, the basket case movies, none of them work. Yeah, but Troll 2 worked for me. Critters 2 works, and Critters, because it's a nice companion piece to this movie, and having some of the characters kind of carry over, like the Scott Grimes character, it's probably what was smart to do that for the sequel. Having your lead now a teenager, a fallen teenager, and become a hero again. Power of the Night. I mean, Johnny Steele, I think is his name. That's a great character. That actor is fun. I remember him as a dancer in some movies, and he's in, what was it? It was Staying Alive or Perfect. I'm mixing them up now, but it's fun seeing him in this role. He's great. Everyone in it. Billy Zane's in the movie as the jerky boyfriend, and it's packed with a lot of likable people, and makes me smile every time I watch it, like a lot of these movies do. So it's been really fun talking about them with you guys, and I'm so glad that you got to do that screening. Are you gonna do a 3, or are you gonna like?
I think we've plumbed the depths of some genre.
That's true.
So looking at the movies that we've talked about and some of the runners up, a lot of these are pretty kid friendly. So I just wanted to ask you which ones really resonated with your kids.
So going on, let's see. Because we watched some of them like a few months ago, I'm gonna have to think about it now. I think they really responded today to Night of the Creeps. I thought it was great. They really responded to Critters when we watched that. They really responded to The Gate, maybe even more so than Critters. Yes, I would say an Arachnophobia for my son. My daughter, not as much, because she has that. She actually has arachnophobia. So I would say, I don't know how I'd rank them for them. Either The Gate or Night of the Creeps. I'll have to ask them. Maybe I'll poll them and then add it in here somewhere tomorrow. That would be fun. But I definitely, Night of the Creeps and The Gate, I feel like, are up there for them. And Critters, they really enjoyed that. And they didn't see The Boogans. We didn't watch that together. I feel like it was a little much. We didn't watch Don't Be Afraid of the Dark together. We didn't watch The Pit as a family. For some reason, I don't know why.
The least family friendly of the bunch.
And Gremlins 2. No, they like Gremlins 2 a lot as well. But that one's been the longest. I think that one goes back longer in terms. So they're gonna have to try to remember that one. That goes back at least over a year. For them. So yeah, I guess that's somewhere. We'll see how it matches up when I actually ask them and see. Hey, gals and guys, I'm here with B and Ben, and we're going to talk a little bit about little creature movies that we watched together as a family. Now, let's go back to really far back when the first one we watched together was Gremlins 2, The New Batch. What were your thoughts on that one? Do you remember it?
Yeah, I think I remember it a bit. I definitely liked it. I think it was a pretty good combination of the critter theme and plenty of comedy. It was
That's right. It's very funny.
And it was one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah, you really, really enjoyed it. You really liked the crazy tone. It was very over the top and wacky. Yeah, that's true.
I love comedy.
That's true. You do. After that, we watched Critters. Critters was the one with the little creatures that roll around, and they attacked the family in Kansas on the farm. Do you like that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you guys really digging it when you watched
Yeah,
it.
it was really good.
That was a pretty fun one together. And
Not a
then
lot to say about the critters.
they're fun though. They're like,
Yeah.
they're definitely. You could tell that Critters. They made Critters because of Gremlins.
Yeah.
They have a very similar vibe, right?
Definitely took a bit.
Inspired
Definitely took it a little bit darker, but
Mhm.
but definitely kept it funny.
Yeah.
That's true.
Had some fun moments.
That's true. Okay, after Critters, we watched The Gate. Do you remember The Gate?
Yeah, that was a very different tone from the others.
That's true.
A lot darker. For me, it wasn't as good as the others because it just felt like a little, you know, it just didn't. I like things that can mix comedy with you know other things. So
It played a little more straight. Yeah, I agree with that. It centered on those kids, those two boys, and then of course unleashing the you could say minions from they call them minions from the gate in their backyard, in the hole in the backyard.
Minions.
But they're not quite funny like the Minions. They have a couple of funny moments, but they're not like, so they're not silly for sure. And of course, the movie's theme is to really have your worst nightmares come true, or at least make it seem like they come true.
It's
Which
kind of like Nightmare on Street.
yeah, that's true. That's right. They kind of take your worst fears and they make them feel like they're real, like a Nightmare on Elm Street. Very good.
Yeah.
And then we watched recently 2 movies: Arachnophobia, which I know scared you, B, because you have, like Jeff Daniels in that movie, you have a spider phobia. So you watched a good amount of it, and then you got it was like almost too intense for you, right?
Yeah.
B, right?
Yeah.
And then Ben, what were your thoughts? You seem to really enjoy it.
I really did think it was good because it definitely it took something similar that it definitely took similar route to like what Gremlins 2 and Critters did. You know,
sure.
I really like that. I also think it's interesting. Also, you know, brings interesting thought on how how animals can become powerful enough to kill.
That's true.
So suddenly.
Okay, and then we watched, the most recent one we watched was Night of the Creeps. How did you guys feel about that one?
The Night of the Creeps.
Definitely interesting. I think the storyline was a lot more. It had different branches to it, which I thought made it a lot nicer. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Stretches back with the different stories of different people.
Right. It focused on college kids. Focused on. It was like a science fiction meets horror.
And although it wasn't as funny as Critters and Gremlins 2, definitely did do it very well.
It did. It had a sense of humor about itself, for sure. I feel like there was some pretty funny moments in there, and also characters you actually end up liking, right?
Yeah.
That's true. All right, so if you could rank them now, guys, which one was your number one? I know I can guess B's number one. Gremlins 2, The New Batch for B. B could watch that anytime. She loves it. How about you, Ben?
I also like E.T.
I'm not sure, but I think my top pick for now would probably have to be Arachnophobia.
Arachnophobia.
What?
Wow.
What?
And all right, and do you have a number 2, like something that you would rank after that?
Still trying to decide between Critters and what's the reason?
Night of the Creeps.
And Night of the Creeps and Critters. I think I'd have to go with Critters.
Critters, and then Night of the Creeps is third, and then you would say The Gate.
I'd say I would have to say Gremlins 2, then The Gate.
Oh, Gremlins 2, and then The Gate. Okay. How about you, B? What was your second after Gremlins 2?
After that would be probably what is it called?
So there's Critters,
Yeah,
Night of the
Critters,
Creeps, The Gate. Okay. So Critters for you after Gremlins 2?
Yeah.
Cool. And then after that, Night of the Creeps or The Gates?
The Creeps.
Night of the Creeps, and then The Gates. And then for you, last Arachnophobia. So that's interesting. For you,
Definitely
for you, B, last Arachnophobia. Ben, you first Arachnophobia.
Actually, I'd actually like to swap Night of the Creeps and Gremlins 2. I do.
So Gremlins 2, and then Night of the Creeps, and then
I understand you.
then The Gate. Okay.
I understand you.
All right. Well, that was fun, guys.
I don't understand.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for your poll.
I don't understand.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. Say goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
I don't understand.
Bye.
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 I don't understand.
It was fun talking about every one of these movies, and one day I'll do get to that animal attacks kind of thing, and but for now it was really fun talking about these kind of creatures and with you. Thanks, David, and a happy Halloween to everybody out there. Hopefully it's very frightful and delightful, and we'll be doing our usual festivities and trick-or-treating and hanging out with friends and giving out candy when we can and all that fun stuff. The house is decorated, so we live for that stuff here. Certainly my daughter, she's more into Halloween than my son, which is fun. And yeah, I'll be Jason again this year. Are you dressing up for Halloween?
I don't know. I've suddenly got the day off, so I have such a good opportunity. So we'll see what I do.
Yeah, let's see. That's kind of fun. Well, thank you. Is there anything you want to plug, like any upcoming screenings or?
We'll be playing a 25th anniversary 4K screening of Blade, November 10th and 11th, I believe. So that's the only thing we've got for sure planned. But yeah, looking forward to that. That's going to be what I call a two-nighter. I'll be going to see the Friday and the Saturday screening.
Nice. So that's on my list to show my son Blade, because he's into Marvel movies, of course, like every kid these days. But I'm like, here, see a real Marvel movie now. To me, the Marvel movie that I actually like is Blade.
Yeah,
and
kind of the
he
only
likes
one that I really like.
And he likes swords, so he likes making swords out of tape and cardboard. He does that a lot, and he likes to make swords from different kinds of cultures and countries. And so, here, maybe you can make blade sword, blade swords, Blade's Blade.
I have an officially licensed Blade letter opener.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. So, guys, go support that when you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that in Tulsa, right? Is it Circle Cinema or somewhere else? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So go support that at David's Theater. Where can people reach you if they want to on the interwebs?
We've got a Facebook group. It's just called Graveyard Shift at Circle Cinema. And that's it. I mean, you can always add me on Facebook or on Instagram. I have a public profile on Instagram.
Great. Do that, guys. You can reach me on retromovielove.com. All the podcasts are there. They're on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Look for Retro Movie Love on YouTube. All the episodes are there. I'm adding more of the old Patreons. I think I'm up to 20 now of the old Patreons. So working my way to the old ones and adding those to out there into the ether, and they're certainly on the YouTube channel. And then Retro Movie Love Instagram page. It's actually under Cinema de Meep Instagram page. I'm always posting there. There's a lot of fun going on there. I'm doing a lot of Instagram stories these days, which gets a lot more traction, and a lot more people seem to go through stories. And so I've been doing a daily poll, which has been fun, of movies, trying to keep a little bit more horror themed these past week or two, and check out those. So Cinema de Meep on Instagram, and then Retro Movie Love has a Facebook page. I'm not on there that much, but yeah, you can find the podcasts everywhere. You support us on Patreon if you want, and yeah, that's it. And we'll be back again for more retro movie love. Look out for that. Look out for the Tough Turf podcast on $2 late fee. That'll drop in November, I think by mid-November. I'll post that on the socials. Thanks again, David. This was really fun.
Thanks. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Ciao for now.
The kids are getting ready. You think they're insane. And the street night's coming, and they'll never be the same. Look out for the darkness. Hold on to your soul. It's a call of the wild, and it's called rock and roll. Power of the night. The streets are calling, stealing from the light. Shadows calling. It's the power of the night. The streets are calling. Power of the night. Night comes on fire. We are the heat. The flame is desire. Burns in the street. No, it's gonna strike again and again. Hold on to the night. Hold on till the end. Power of the night. The streets are calling, stealing from the light. Shadows crawling. It's the power of the night. The streets are calling. Power
I'm sorry. I didn't know that it was... Here, hold this. You feel better?
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.